Hello, my name is David Flood, and I'm going to take us on a walking tour through a gallery of what I call natural art. All of this natural art is wood from our local environment here in Cape Ann, Massachusetts. I have about 10 to 15 pieces here. They represent about 10 different species of wood, all local to the area. This particular piece is a piece of red cedar wood that I found in the woods nearby, and it has a form of expression that lends itself to a traditional Greek chorus type of figurative presentation. Much of my work is not figurative, but this piece just definitely speaks form. And I name these pieces after something that evokes the energy or the spirit of them. Each piece tells something about the place where it comes from, the conditions in which they grew, and something inherent in the quality of wood itself. Nature is inherently abstract, and I consider this to be abstract art. Even when it is a figurative piece, there's an abstract expression going on in here. This one happens to be called Jumala, which is the name of a protagonist of an Australian novel called Walg, and it's the story of a young woman who's searching for her child in Aboriginal Australia. This is just my personal take on it. When you look at pieces like this, they say so many different things. I work it from the inside, so there's a hollow in here that talks to the core of her soul. This has the calligraphy of bugs having worked underneath the bark and into the grain of the wood. There is no Rosetta Stone for calligraphy that bugs write, but it does say something in a larger kind of context. As I look around my outdoor studio, getting ready for an indoor shop, you can see different fruit woods that also speak a different language. This is a piece of apple wood from a nearby orchard. This was part of a large apple trunk. In fact, all of my pieces come from much larger pieces of trees, which I hang in a gantry here, and I'll show you in a minute, and then work to eliminate pieces that don't work and accentuate pieces that do work. I take out all the dead wood. This was one core of an apple tree that took me quite a long time to figure out how to remove the different parts. Some of it was rotten, came away with time. As I start to subtract it, the form of it starts to evolve, and I begin to relate to these as individual pieces. I couldn't help but think that this was a whale fluke, and I thought, this is the Moby Dick of a certain way of looking at the world. I call this Morcon, who was the Moby Dick of the Japanese lore. So as they begin to develop this kind of personality, I start to work on them and then move them from the raw material into a finished product. It's really important how I put them on a base to show the final form and the presentation of how they stand for the rest of history, having been removed from the natural environment or to be regarded in your home or in a studio, different environment.
Can you talk about this black cherry piece over here?
Yeah, sure. This piece came from a stone wall in Ipswich, and it tells an ecological and historical story. This was the ground side, this was the sky side. I removed large boulders from this, which were here. There's a small piece of a boulder left here. The ecological part of the story is Ipswich, maybe 120 years ago, was a sheep farming community. This canker, this growth on the side here, was likely the product of sheep coming along and nibbling away at the new shoots at the ground level as this grew up. And as they nibbled and nibbled and nibbled, this canker grew and adds a really distinctive part to the personality here. This piece dances. Black cherry is a wonderful wood to carve. I mounted this so that it looks a little bit, it's called gitan, which is the French word for gypsy. There's something about a gypsy dance embodied in the spirit of this piece. And this is kind of the king of the show. Probably it's certainly the largest work here. And it is black cherry. This is carved on the inside. This had extensive branches and other stuff coming off of it. I remove that. My objective is not to show my hand in working on these, but to show the larger forces of nature and the inherently abstract, wonderful presentation of wood without the kind of the detail of my own hand.